Welcome in, College Baseball Central fans, back again on a Monday to kind of recap the weekend here with Coach Kirk Saarloos. Kurt, how'd the weekend go for you?
It was very offensive. We'll put it that way. As a pitching coach, you cut your teeth as a pitching coach, and you see all these runs scored. It's not the way you draw it up, but I'll tell you what, 3-0 is better than anything else. So, 2 comeback wins, down I think 9-3 on Friday, and down 10-4 on Saturday, and our offense just kept playing and got some good late inning pitching. Our middle inning has been kind of we've given up most of the runs we've given up on the weekend was in the middle innings. So we kind of started well, ended well, and that's if you want to play well in 2 parts of the game, I guess those are the 2: start well and end well. And so, but I was happy with a lot of things that we got accomplished, a lot of things that we got to get better at moving forward, and that's why you play the games, and that's why you play non-conference games. Florida Gulf Coast, good team. Dave does a great job over there. I think they led the country last year in runs, had 142 homers as a group, and they lost a lot of that, but I thought they are going to be really offensive again this year. Whatever he's teaching over there in terms of the offensive side, it's really, really good.
Yeah, they look like a big unit. I know that they didn't return a lot, but they have a lot of pop in those bats, and it was obviously a really fun series to watch.
Maybe for you, my gray hair, I think I popped out a couple more gray hairs on the weekend, but like I said, yeah, it was a fun weekend for sure. It's opening weekend is always fun all around college baseball, and to be able to do it in front of your home crowd and do it at home is awesome. You don't have to go to Arizona or go to Florida because it's too cold. So It's great to open up here in Fort Worth.
After that series, kind of just like one against the one you just had, how do you kind of evaluate that? Is that a situation where you're saying, gosh, our team is really gritty and we were really able to overcome a lot? Or is it more concerned that you did have to overcome those things?
I read your tweet. Noah, and I think one of our Lupton Drinking Club guys maybe tweeted back at you.
I'm sure he did.
But anyways, no, I think it's one of those deals where it's a little bit of both. But I would say it's more on the side of the grittiness. We're gonna pitch. We have a good pitching staff, and I just don't think we pitched obviously well enough, and too many free bases. And it was a very offensive weekend in terms of the way the ballpark played. And so I think we walked 20 guys. It's way too much. So you're putting free bases, and then sandwich that around. I think they had 7 home runs. We had maybe 10 or 11 this weekend. So you sandwich that around some home runs and you get some crooked numbers. So I think the good thing is when you maybe don't pitch your best and play marginal defense and still win 3 games, that's really good, because I think we'll be able to identify, and we have identified, okay, what do we need to get better at? And that's what every coach is looking at Monday morning. What did we learn from the weekend, and what can we get better at? And that's our job, to make sure that we do those things, and then put forth some effort in practice and games and everything to fix those things.
How hard is it to set up your bullpen with a two-way guy like Peyton Tolley? I know we've seen Florida do it on the Sunday, and you've done it with the Friday. Is there any challenges with that, or is that just kind of he was always going to be the Friday guy?
No, he wasn't always going to be the Friday guy. I think it just slotted in where, Cole Klecker's back, and we had him leading up to the season throwing on Saturdays, or on Fridays, I'm sorry, but he skipped one, just because he was 1 week behind everybody else. So we didn't feel like we wanted to throw him right out game 1. And Peyton Tolley, to be honest with you, he earned that Friday leading up to the season. The two-way thing, it's, a lot of it's going to be dictated on what's best for our team. Is it keeping them on Fridays? Is it moving them to Saturdays? Is it moving them to Sundays? I mean, there's a lot of things up in the air. And again, the rotation you start the season one is never the one you end it with. And so, at least in my 14 years of coaching, it's kind of, you think you know what you want to have as a rotation, and then by the end of the year, it's like, okay, well, this is the rotation because of production, injuries, those type of things. So, it's always fluid, it's always moving, and we're always looking at it. But he's pretty fun to coach. Left side, 90 to 95, and, hit a game-winning homer on Saturday for us, and, had a couple hits yesterday. And so, the big thing for him is making sure that we're doing best by him so he can be physically ready to both pitch and then DH the rest of the week.
After a weekend like that and with a game coming up tomorrow, what does today look like for you and your staff?
Just get in here and kind of, again, we all kind of look at our own part of what we coach, and see, okay, let's look at what we did. Maybe it's defense, base running, pitching, offense. Let's rewatch most of the games. Let's go over our notes from the games, and then we'll sit down together as a collective group and kind of go over exactly what we thought about our particular group. And then, okay, what are we going to do moving forward? And then after that's done, then we kind of go back and then start preparing for Texas State, who we play tomorrow, who's went 3-0 on the weekend. I think they gave up like 1 run or 2 runs like the whole weekend, pitched it really well. And Trouty, Steve Trout always has those guys ready to hit. So that's going to be a great test for us Tuesday. So a lot of it is reflection on the weekend, and then the second half is looking forward to tomorrow.
Carson Bowen and Curtis Byrne both played first as well as catching. How have they kind of developed as fielders? And then do you as a coach kind of feel comfortable throwing them out there at first?
Yeah, for sure. I think the good thing about a catcher playing first is they're not going to be afraid of the baseball. At worst, you feel like they're going to block the ball and then be able to pick it up and go to first base. So, yeah, I think around the bag is where they've improved the most in terms of, getting balls, scooping balls out of the dirt, being able to communicate with pitchers in the inside game. So they've played a lot of first base, leading up to the season. And I thought they handled themselves really well yesterday. Actually the whole weekend. But I thought it gave us an opportunity. Carson Bowen, I think, caught 56 games or something last year. That's way too much. And so most of that was because Curtis Byrne was hurt with his back. But this year we want to do a really good job of making sure we're giving them time off away from catching. And for us to be able to keep Tolle in and have those 2 guys in is to put one of them at first. And I thought they handled themselves really well.
Bringing in a guy like Peyton Chatagnier, you hear the commentators talk about he has that championship experience. He knows what it takes to win. How much does that really actually come true in a locker room, especially in a fall where you guys just went to Omaha?
Well, I think we've struck gold twice at the second base position out of the portal with Trey Richardson and now Peyton Chatagnier. Peyton, not only did he have a great weekend offensively, but he's the guy that you never worry about his energy. You never worry about his mindset. He's always, he loves to play the game of baseball. And he shows that with great emotion while playing. He's already become a fan favorite just because of the way he plays the game and how excited he is about baseball. And that rubs off. And I think, a lot of times moving into a program, as a transfer, it can be a difficult transition sometimes. And it's been seamless with him, really all of our transfers. And I think that has a lot to do with who we're recruiting out of the portal, but also who we have on our roster in terms of them welcoming those guys with open arms and understanding that, those guys are going to help us win and hopefully win a national championship, which Peyton has been a part of. That's the only guy besides Coach Bruce on this, in this program right now that's won a national championship. So you're always going to pull from that as much as you can.
Ryder got the start on Friday and Saturday before Bassler came in on Sunday at third. How big of a fall did Ryder have, and what was kind of the confidence of going with the freshman over the transfer?
Well, we felt like Ryder has a lot of skills. I would say he's really good at most everything. Maybe there's no plus tool. Maybe it's not maybe a plus run or a plus power, but he plays the game the right way. And what we wanted to do, he's going to be a big piece for us in his career at TCU. And it wasn't so much what Jack Basir didn't do or Brody Green didn't do. It was more of we felt like we wanted to give him the opportunity right away, get his feet wet, figure things out, and then go on from there. And so, he didn't have the weekend probably per se that he wanted to, but he's going to get a ton of opportunities to get back in there and be able to play a huge part. We had a pretty good third baseman from Utah before, and Braden Taylor. And, we think that Ryder has a lot of skill sets that kind of resemble what Braden can do. And so we got to find out. The only way you find out is by playing them. I think the big thing on the weekend was the way Brody Green handled having an unbelievable fall, not having as good of a spring leading up to the season, not starting Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and then coming in about the fifth inning. And the first thing he did was lay down a drag bunt for a base hit, scored on a ball and dirt read from third to home, and then made two really, really good plays on 5-2-3 double plays. So that tells you all you need to know about the character of Brody Green in terms of not pouting, not upset, gets his opportunity, does the most with it, and who knows? It's all about now making the most of what opportunities you get, and looking forward to watching. Those three guys are continue to get opportunities over there and see who makes the most of it.
You talk about those guys coming up off the bench and being able to contribute right away. What's the secret sauce for them being able to stay ready in those kind of moments?
Well, I think the big thing is we try to develop all 40 roster spots, and we try to rotate as much as we can defensively, and then obviously you play inter squad games, and you get a ton of at bats, but at bats in January are one thing, at bats in February, March, April, May are a different thing, and so again, that's why we're trying to figure out what is our lineup, who's the guys that we can depend on, and some of it needs to be, if the lineup is really deep and heavy and is carrying the load offensively, we might be able to play somebody that has a little bit more experience from the defensive side of things, as opposed to we're not scoring as many runs. We might have to give up a little defense to get some offense. Ultimately, you want to have, your best 9 guys, the best hitters and fielders, but sometimes that isn't the case. So you got to pick and choose your spots and give guys opportunities, and that's by the fourth weekend, you kind of like to figure out what your starting 9 is, and then who are those 10, 11, and 12 guys that are going to get a lot of playing time as well.
Coach, it was kind of a lighter base running weekend compared to what we saw last year from TCU.
We stole 7 bags, Jake. Come on.
Last year I felt like y'all were
7 times 14 weekends. That's still a lot of bags.
So are we still? I know that the announcers always call it the Fullerton flair with the athleticism. Is that something that we're kind of expected to see again in 2024?
Well, I think the way Coach Bruce and Coach DeLara coach the base running, I think it's a deal where we feel really good about taking the bags that we feel like we can get. And, are we as fast and fleet of foot as last year? We're not. But we also have some guys, Cole Fontenelle last year, when you look at Cole, you would never have thought the guy would have been able to steal 20 bags on the year. So I think what it does is it allows people who, might not be the fastest runners, but have great instincts on the bases, be able to take advantage and steal bases. Peyton Chatinier stole 3 bases on Friday. I think last year he had 2 stolen bases. He probably had 6 or 7 for his career. So I feel like it gives us opportunities to be able to do that. Also, it was a really small ballpark this weekend. Like we talked about, there was 15 or 16 or who knows how many home runs by both teams. So sometimes when the ball's flying out of the yard, you probably get pumped the brakes a little bit in terms of maybe running the bases in terms of us so aggressively, because the ability to hit the ball over the fence was there this weekend. And so sometimes you kind of just pump the brakes on the running game and sit back and hit a little bit more.
You mentioned Peyton Chatinier's speed. Talk about him kind of stealing that base there at the end to win the game on Friday night.
Well, a lot of times I always judge, are we really good at stealing bases if you can do it in high pressure situations? And, he stole a base in the 9th. And then that's the reason we won the game, is because Jack Arthur, gave us a really good at bat, ended up swinging through a pitch, got to the backstop, and we kind of went over it with Peyton. He did most things right, but there was a couple things he could have done better to make that play a little less close at home. But the main thing is his aggressiveness got him to second, and then the wild pitch and throw to first base allowed him to score from second base to win the ball game. So, we're not in that position unless he steals the bag in the 9th inning to begin with. So I always love, it's easy to steal bags when, games are maybe decided or it's the 6th inning, but it's a whole different deal when everybody in the ballpark knows the guy at first is trying to get to second and you still do it. So that's that was key for me.
As the game kind of embraces analytics, what percentage of your decisions would you say are based on analytics versus just kind of a gut feel, old-fashioned way?
I would say most of the preparation, we use analytics in terms of what guys, what they like to throw and how much are they in the zone, and from the opponent's offense, how often are they swinging, counts, and what are they swinging, what are they swing and miss at, or what do they have trouble with. But when it comes to when we play the game, it's 100% feel. It's nothing analytical. That's what I think Coach Bruce does best, is the fact that he knows baseball, and he is going to push the right buttons when needed, and it's all about feel. And he's got some of the best feel in the game. And then you factor that with Coach Lon on the pitching side, who is just as good. So I feel like with Coach Lon doing the pitching and Coach Bruce doing the offense, we have two guys that are baseball guys, but understand the numbers and don't think that those are something that is not part of the game. It is part of the game. We understand it. We know it, but that's more for prep. And then when the game's there, just like our players, let's not think about, well, what's the percentage of this pitch being a fastball in this game? No, you got to go out and you got to be able to play baseball. And I think that's what this team and the coaching staff does really well.
You have a couple of former players on staff. How hard is it to transition from being another guy in the clubhouse to now being a coach that's there to help them?
Well, that's how for me, that's how I got into this profession too, is I was an undergrad assistant coach back at Fullerton when Dave Serrano was the head coach there. And so I kind of knew what that looked like when I was probably closer in age to the player than I was to the coaching staff. And the same thing with Brian Howard and Evan Scoug. The great thing is they've, I think they have a great rapport with the student athlete because they played here. None of us played here. So they played here. They know what it's like. They know what's expected. And so that they're able to maybe put it in a way to a player who might not feel comfortable or maybe doesn't want to ask some question to a coach. And they might go to Brian or they might go to Evan and they might put it in a different way. Hey, I've been exactly where you're at. I was a freshman and I was this or that. And so they can use their experience of what it was like when they were here. And the great thing is those two guys, man, we have a lot of people that bleed purple, but those two, like if you cut them open like that, it's all purple inside of those two. And that's the neat thing, is having one on the pitching side, one on the position side, and combined, they were here for 7 years and they went to Omaha 7 times. So I don't think there's another staff of undergrad assistant coaches in the country that could probably say that.
When you're coaching in a place like Omaha, really all season long, it could be said, but especially in a place like Omaha where it's almost you and just a couple head coaches remaining, how much do you learn from those other head coaches and how they operate and kind of their strategy, especially a guy like Jay Johnson, who really was vocal about it?
Yeah, I think you're always learning, and especially, when you get to the end of the year, everybody operates a little bit differently. What are you going to do with your off days? What are you going to do with, are you going to allow guys to go to games when you're not playing? And for me, you never know when you're going to be back. You need to let these guys to be able to enjoy their time there. And everybody can get locked in for games. So it's about the preparation. When it's time to be a baseball player, it's time to be a baseball player. When it's time to be a fan and enjoy your time in Omaha, then let's do that. I think the main thing is, can you compartmentalize what's a task, what's ahead of you? And I think if you'd ask most coaches, I think the same way there. But I think you're always looking at the other teams and how they got their teams there, and just the expertise and how much success they've had in their careers to bring teams consistently to Omaha.
Coach, you always schedule tough. I mean, last year you went to Florida State. What benefits have you found from doing so, and how do you think that kind of prepares your team in conference play?
Yeah, that's always the question of, do you schedule easy to get some confidence leading into conference play, or do you schedule difficult for teams to expose your weaknesses? And I came from the West Coast and Cal State Fullerton, where we weren't in a Power 5 conference. And so, you saw them again this year. Every year we'd open with Stanford, and then we'd usually go on a road trip to an SEC program. And so I think it's more advantageous to schedule difficult so that we can get exposed, because you want to be exposed. You don't want to be exposed for the first time playing one of your conference opponents that's really good. You want to be exposed by playing somebody in the first 3 weekends and also the midweek games where it's like, holy smokes, we got to tighten this area up. And so this year with Florida Gulf Coast, UCLA coming in next week, and then going over to Go Live to play Arizona State and USC, and then by the way, Texas State 3-0 tomorrow, and then next week you have I think Washington State and Arizona, I think they went 3-1 and 2-1, and then you got DBU the next Tuesday who went 3-0. So I think out of the gate, we're going to find out who we are and what we need to get better at real fast.
You kind of seem to be a little bit of a college baseball guy just in general. I know you just mentioned reading my tweets, which I assume you have notifications on. When you scroll Twitter or seek out that news, are you trying to read things about your team, or are you trying to read things about the sport? Are you looking for other teams?
Usually when the season starts, my social media, the amount of time I spend on social media is very small, just because, we talk a lot around here about the only opinion that matters is the opinion of, the people in our program, support staff, and coaching staff. And a lot of times everybody now has a voice because of social media. And for us, it doesn't matter that much. Like last year when we were 23-20, the only people that thought we could go to Omaha were the people in our building. And so we try to eliminate the outside noise as much as we can. At the end of a weekend, might scroll through there just to kind of get a feel for what happened around the country and just see some of the storylines there. But for the most part, February 16, my screen time on my phone goes down about 50% just because it's mostly just phone calls, text messages, and emails. And then on a Sunday afternoon, just kind of checking in to see how college baseball, because there's nothing better than college baseball and the storylines that it brings every year, and to understand kind of what college baseball looks like around the country, and again, it looks like, offense is going to be high, and there was some really good pitching around the country too, but I think as we see, I think the offense and the production and the amount of home runs being hit, are definitely, probably as high as it's been since maybe, I don't remember, probably 1999 or 2001 or something like that, where it was not quite the gorilla ball days, but it's the numbers are getting back pretty close to that.
Coach, as you kind of prep for Texas State, who's the one person on the Bobcats roster that really jumps out to you?
Well, Mora, we played them in the fall. So we went down to San Marcos to play them in the fall. He didn't play. I think he's getting back from an injury. But we played him twice last year, once there, once here. So we're pretty familiar with that ball club. Tough group, man. It's a tough group to play because they're going to be offensive. And I feel like, they've done a really good job in recruiting and on the mound. And so they're a well-coached program that our hands will be full in terms of not just offensively, but also, on the defensive side and pitching and all that. It's going to be, an extension of what we saw this weekend. I think it's going to be a well-played game and kind of exactly what you want.
Kind of a fun one here for you. You have to pick 2 coaches anywhere in the country to go on a cross-country road trip with.
Wow.
Who are you picking?
Oh, boy. Who am I picking? Well, that's a great question. I'd probably pick somebody that's has endless amounts of energy so they could just drive the whole time and doesn't need sleep. I have no clue. I don't really know. I'd probably take our coaching staff. I'll just do the easy way out.
That's a nice political answer there for you.
There you go.
Coach, one last question for you. What's one thing you learned this weekend from your Frogs? And then what's one thing you really hope to learn this weekend against UCLA and Texas State?
That they're resilient. I think throughout that whole game, it was, we just said keep playing. And that's all they did was, I don't think that we're ever going to be out of a ball game. And there was no panic. And it was just like, hey, we're going to keep playing. And so I think they learned a full season's worth of lessons in terms of just keep playing, play all 9 innings. College baseball is a crazy sport, crazy game. And you're going to have a chance to bring the tying run up to the plate at some point late in the game. So I think we learned what's inside of our guys and learned that we have 40 guys pulling in the same direction. Great dugout in terms of even when things were going poorly, I thought we handled that really well. And our response to that ultimately led to our outcome of winning some close games late is because how we handled, kind of getting punched in the mouth in the middle innings. And then I was super proud of, we had a center fielder, Chase Brunson, a freshman that, I thought took probably some of the best at-bats consistently throughout the whole weekend. And that's tough to do for anybody, let alone somebody that's getting his first action. So was happy to see, him come out and have a really good start to the year. And then, another guy in terms of the pitching side that was a bright spot was Zach Collier, a local kid that went to Nolan Catholic about 20 minutes away from Fort Worth. Really, it's about 10 minutes away. But he went to McLennan last year and threw 3 innings at the middle to end of Friday night's game, 3 innings, 1 hit, 6 strikeouts, no runs to allow us to come back in that game. And then he was able to come back yesterday in a shorter version of it and give us some quality outs for us to kind of extend the lead. And, I think that was really good because you're trying to find your roles for your pitching staff. And I thought, he came out and was really, really good.
Coach, thanks for sitting down with us. Good luck. Hopefully y'all can go 4-0 this weekend.
I appreciate it. I would love that, but we're just trying to figure out how we can get better every day. There's another cliche coach speak there for you, Noah.
Thank you.